everyone. My name is Dale Beluccio, Auntie Dale for this purpose, and welcome to the first premiere episode of It's a Legit Metaphysical World. And yes, it is. So, on this journey, I hope that we can educate you and let you know all the different journeys and all the different spiritual paths that we take in this metaphysical world. And I will be bringing on different guests to help explore this. And I want to tell you a little bit about my very first guest. I'm very excited that he is here. His name is Paul DeSegna. And Paul, there he is. Hi, Mr. Paul.
Hello. How are you, Auntie Dale?
I am wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. How are you doing this evening?
I'm well and obviously very nervous that this is live.
I know, but we're going to get through this, Paul. I promise. We'll get through this. It will be painless. Okay?
Great.
So Paul is a shamanic drummer, and I've known Paul, oh my goodness, 8 or 9 years now. It's been a while
since
we have known each other. So, Paul, can you tell our audience a little bit about how you got to, first, a little bit, what is a shamanic drummer?
So, yes. So I am, if you're asking, so I'm answering, I am a shamanic practitioner. I'm a firm believer that the only individuals that can state that they are shamans are individuals who are from indigenous tribes.
So you have to have a direct link to a indigenous tribe.
That's my belief. Yes.
Is there different beliefs in that world?
I would imagine that there are, because of different cultures, because every culture, every continent has shamans. Before I understood what the word shaman was, I understood, and I still understand, that there are medicine men and women with different tribes of where people seek out these individuals for health reasons, medical reasons, for financial reasons, for marriage reasons, etc. So again, every culture, has shamans. When I first began on this path, I thought of two places. I thought of Native Americans in our own country, and I also thought of South America. And as I started on this path, both my teachers follow the Tuvan shamans from Mongolia, and again, it's similar. But thinking about shamanism goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, before the fax machine, before iPhones, before computers. And
Paul, is a shaman and a medicine person, or a medicine man or a medicine woman, are they the same thing, just different terms?
For me, they're the same, yes, and they're just different terms, correct.
Okay. And I did not realize when you said they can help with not just the spiritual stuff. People would seek them out for like financial reasons.
Yes,
too.
They do. Correct. That's not my role in my practice as being a shamanic practitioner. But again, how I've been taught and how I've learned and understanding different tribes and so forth, they're not dialing, you for issues, as an example, with your business. They're not picking up the phone and going to the Bank of America to have their checkbooks balanced. Again, every tribe is different. I remember taking a class with a shamanic practitioner from Johnston, and they would bring in Peruvian shamans, and they brought in two different groups, two sisters and two gentlemen. They were both from a similar area, but again, very different ways of practicing, very different ways of teaching, and so forth. So again, they're not all the same. It's no differently than we're all doing energy work, clearly.
Yeah.
We're all doing it differently. So somebody who's doing craniosacral work clearly is doing something very differently than when I am working with somebody in my space, giving them Reiki or doing somatic body work.
So you do Reiki also?
Yes. So I know you asked about my path. So back in 2002, my dad passed away, and he died suddenly, and our family never really had the opportunity to say goodbye. So uh, a friend of mine had a relationship with Roland Comtois, and
Good
who
friend of ours.
we all are connected to in one way or another, in a very wonderful way.
Mhm.
And he said, I have a friend, you need to go see him. He can help you. And of course, me being skeptical, I was like, sure. My friend is giving Roland information. And Roland's going to kind of spit it back to me.
So
Um,
at this time, Paul, you weren't into any of this kind
Not at
of
all. I was at the
metaphysical
time,
stuff?
I was selling real estate full time, a completely different planet than energy work.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went to see Roland and had a session with him, and still left skeptical, saying, okay, he could have heard this from so and so, but
Right.
this he couldn't have. And I became close with Roland. And as things evolved, I started taking Reiki classes with him. And then I also started taking shamanic classes. And then my wife, who's in a completely different corporate world, one of her mentors was working with Richard Strozzi, who does somatic body work out in California. And it was that perfect storm. And I kind of did all three of them at the same time. And then I became a Reiki master in 2009. I finished my shamanic work with Isa out in California at the same time. And then weeks later, I I became a certified somatic coach. I don't do any coaching, but I do have conversations with people all the time, just like you do.
Conversations about what? About
So many people who reach out to me shamanically have either been referred, or they'll see my website, or a lot of them will just Google shamans.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I start with the same way I shared with you, that I'm a shamanic practitioner and my belief, et cetera, indigenous tribes. And then a lot of them say that they don't feel correctly, they don't feel right, something is missing, they feel stuck. They had a loved one who's passed, or they were in a relationship uh, that broke up. And most, or a lot of the work that I believe that I do has to do with power retrieval, soul retrieval,
Power retrieval?
power retrieval, soul retrieval, and releasement of energetic interference or feeling stuck, etc.
So
Power retrieval,
can you tell us what power retrieval is, and then soul retrieval? Because I don't
yes,
think a lot of our viewers may have heard
sure.
those terms.
So power retrieval is where I think one of the best analogies is that you ask me to do something, Dale, and I say yes when I really want to say no.
Yeah.
That is me giving up power.
Okay.
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 If I another analogy of power loss is being stuck, not having any traction.
You mean being stuck, like not knowing what to do in your life, being stuck?
Yes.
So
Yes.
being stuck on your path, so to speak.
If you want to use those words, yes, being stuck on your path, being stuck in a relationship,
Okay.
being stuck, it could be a relationship with a significant other. It could be a relationship, with our parents, our children, etc. Because think about it, we interact with human beings constantly, and
Yes.
those are relationships, and some of those relationships are intimate. And I don't mean because you and I can be intimate, but not having to hug each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you mean, yeah, intimacy does not have to mean a sexual act.
Exactly.
It
Okay.
means to be vulnerable to somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think about human beings is that we're taught from an early age is to be guarded.
Yes.
And, or in my words, the way that, because of my own process, because this is all a learning process for me, a healing process for me, as I'm on this path, and even though I'm assisting other people that visit me, etc., is is my guardedness is armoring. So in order for me to hypothetically go out in the world, I've got to put on my metal suit so that I don't get hurt. And I'm not being vulnerable. I'm not letting anybody in.
So you're saying from a young age, that's what we're taught, is to wear this
You know
suit.
what? I believe it is. I also believe a lot of it has to do with trauma. And even though I grew up as a Catholic. I'm Italian. I'm the firstborn of my family. So we think about all the stories that go along with those things, and they're true. And even though I couldn't have gotten better parents and a better brother and a better sister,
Yeah.
and aunts and uncles and so forth and so on, we have trauma in our lives. And the analogy that I use is that when I was in school, we had blackboards.
Yep.
And the teacher or the students would write letters, words, numbers, etc. And then when they ran out of the room, they would erase. And even though the teacher or the student erased the blackboard, there was always remnants of letters, numbers, and words. And then time would go by, and then we would go on vacation for a week, and the custodians would come in over the week, and they would clean the entire building. And we would come in on that Monday after being away for a week, and the blackboard was washed clean. In my world, the blackboard still has remnants of letters, numbers, and words. Because how I perceive trauma is that people don't come to see me and it gets erased, or they come to see you and it gets erased. They come to see us potentially to create a different relationship with it.
True. No, I totally agree with that, Paul. The trauma work I do, I tell people you can't truly start healing from the trauma until you accept that it's a piece of your puzzle.
Correct.
You cannot erase it.
And I use the analogy of the puzzle when I talk about soul loss.
Okay.
Soul loss is very similar to power loss because, again, it's giving up of something. And if you listen to people's conversations where someone has had a loss, and it could be a pet, and it could be a loved one, an aunt, an uncle, a parent, when they say a piece of me went with them, I have a hole in my heart. Okay. That to me is a clear sign of soul loss. And when we lose pieces of ourself, soul parts that get stuck in time and space, we lose power that goes with it.
So when you say soul loss, you mean specifically a person or a pet or something outside ourselves that we loved, that we have lost?
The relationship that we have with that individual person or animal, yes,
is now gone, and it creates a hole inside.
Perfect. It. Just like the puzzle.
Yeah.
You and I go to the store, we see the puzzle, the box, we fall in love with or get excited about the picture on the box. We buy it, we come home, we clear the table, we dump the contents of the box on the table. The contents on the table look nothing like the cover on the box.
Right.
And then you stop putting it together. At some point, you get frustrated because you can't find a piece or two or three. You come back, and now you're looking at something that's partially whole, but that has missing pieces, holes in it. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, it
My
does.
analogy of our energy bodies is the trauma that we've experienced, a soul loss, being bullied, etc. Those are the holes that are missing. So those pieces, again, are stuck in time and space. And through the shamanic process, you had a question.
Yeah. So if those pieces are out there, right? Out in the metaphysical world, let's bring it back to that, right?
Correct.
If it's out there, you're saying the work you do is to retrieve those pieces, those puzzle pieces, to make us whole again?
Yes, but it's not one time and we're done.
Oh, it's like the work I do. Yeah, it's an
Yes.
ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process because what I've been taught and what I believe in the soul retrieval and power retrieval process, in my case, I'm using sound, whether it's a rattle or whether it's a drum, or you can see the gong, it's actually behind me, etc. We're using that as a sonic driver. And we're working in non-ordinary reality, like you just said, metaphysical. Okay. I'm working with teachers, helping spirits, guides, whichever word works for you, that I have a relationship with, to do power retrieval, soul retrieval, helping individuals cross over, psychopomp work, etc.
So
And go
you
ahead.
you actually have spirit guides
Yes.
that help you do your work.
Well, so the reverse, they're the ones doing the work. I'm assisting them. I'm creating sound. I'm creating the physical body. They're the ones doing the work. There's no mistake. There's no ego here that if you were to come visit me and we were to do work together, that I believe that I'm fixing you. Does that make sense?
And it has to be like that. Well, it's the same thing as when we do Reiki, because we are just a channel for
Correct.
the Reiki energy to come from whatever you believe, right?
Correct.
The divine, the universe,
Right.
through us, through you. Like
Yes.
that's how I describe it all the time to my clients.
Correct.
I am just a channel. So you're saying your work with the drums and the gongs and everything, it's the same philosophy that you are just a channel again for healing.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Because when I start having a conversation with somebody, in that conversation is that there's no attachment to outcome. Because as soon as I think I'm driving the bus, ego's in the way, and then there's no healing that's going to happen. That's my personal belief.
No, I totally agree with you, Paul. I mean, as I've gone through my own journey and as I have become more enlightened, for lack of a better word, okay, um, I I can see things now. I can get senses, especially when I do Reiki. I can read people. I can walk into a
Correct.
room and just sense things. I mean, you get more heightened doing this work,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And once you start saying to yourself, "Oh, look what I can do," forget it, right?
Correct.
That's almost like it puts a block in your ability at that point because now you're an ego. It has nothing to do with anything else. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And
Yes.
I try to tell people that all the time that say, oh, can I do this? I said, yes, put your ego aside because it has nothing to do with you. I've given messages to people, Paul. I can't even remember what they are because you know why? They're not my message.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with me. I am
Correct.
here you go. You take the message. So you
Correct.
do the same type of things, only you do it with sound.
Exactly. And
Okay.
so
All right.
just going through my learning process years ago, something would happen, or I would see a hawk, or I would see a bear, or I'd see a deer. I'd run home and I'd open up my Animal Speaks book,
Okay.
which is a great book. And the same thing with dreams. And then at one point, one of my teachers said, there's nothing wrong with having an Animal Speaks book or a dream book, but you're asking somebody else to interpret what you've experienced.
Absolutely.
So it's now on the shelf.
Yeah.
I very rarely open it because when someone says, "Well, what do you think?" My immediate response is, "It's important what I think, but what's more important is what do you think?" Because it's your experience.
Right.
And I don't want to take away from your experience. And that may sound hokey, but that's a reality. I think too many people want to jump in and tell you what you should believe. And that's not the process to me of learning.
No, I don't. I totally agree. I'll have people that will say that to me all the time. Well, what does this mean? I saw this. What does that mean?
Right.
And I'll say, what do you think? What did it make you feel? I try to stick with the feelings. You know what I mean?
And that's where, again, that's where it's all at the feeling. Yes.
What did you feel when you saw that cardinal? What was who was the first person you thought of? Like, what did that do to you inside? Yeah, I I have similar books when I started my spiritual journey
Right.
that are on the book shelf collecting dust too.
Correct. Yeah.
Because, and I tell people it's not about what, because when you think of it this way, Paul, the books that we ran to before, that's somebody else's perception
Totally.
of what the cardinal, you know what I mean?
Correct.
What the cardinal means. Why
Exactly.
am I asking somebody else's perception of what I
Correct.
saw or felt?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to get back to something you said because I thought it was interesting a little
Okay.
while ago when you said, like me, it's funny, I didn't know this about you, Paul. We were both raised Catholic.
Yes.
Now that's a very narrow-minded, sometimes
I
look
will agree
at
with that.
kind of stuff,
Yes.
right? I mean, we were taught, at least I was, never to go to someone like Roland,
Right.
ever. You know, you don't
Yes.
believe in stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you, when you were going through this journey, you know, and this enlightening that you went through,
Mm-hmm.
did that ever play out for you? Did you
No,
ever? No,
I didn't.
that never. The little Catholic ingrained stuff that's in us that never.
I've been told I've been told I'm a nonconformist,
Uh-huh.
and I would have my mom's no longer with us, and she and my dad, because of their upbringing and so forth, were very religious, and I say this in a loving way. Every Sunday they would drag myself, my younger sister and brother to church,
Yep.
and once we went through the baptism, which I was too young, but the first communion and then confirmation, I was like, I'm done. And unfortunately, I did the same thing to my kids. Okay, as much as
Did
I
you really?
fought
You
tooth
dragged
and
them
nail,
through?
I had them go through, and then when they made their confirmation, they were like, I'm done.
I'm done.
And so my mother and I would have very interesting conversations, specifically when she became sick. And interestingly enough, I could do work with her on the phone, a guided meditation and so forth. But God forbid I went to visit her and tried to give her Reiki and put hands on.
Really?
And I said to her one day, I said, you know what's interesting? I said, you're concerned that when you go, that you're going to go to the pearly gates and someone's going to meet you and they're going to be flipping through the book looking for your name. And they said,
Yep.
oh, you did that weird crap with your son. Poof, you're going down.
You're going down. That's it. You're done. Yep.
And it was a chuckle, but it was, I know that's how she felt.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
was reality for her, unfortunately.
and
Yeah.
so for me, so if you know, and I had this conversation with clients, and I said, look, if you ask me what my religion is, I would tell you that I'm a Catholic. I am not a practicing Catholic. I clearly have issues of individuals in a church setting who put themselves up physically in a higher place to, in my mind, to talk down to me and to tell me how I should do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
And it ends there.
Yep. Yep.
It ends there.
Well, there's really not much to say after that, right?
Well, and no, and there's no need to throw them under the bus. They're doing a great job on their own.
Mhm.
Um, so,
True. True.
but again, my sister's very religious, very Catholic, and I will joke with her from time to time and say, you know, how is this working? And she'll say, I'm leaving it in God's hands, and I respect that. And I say, you know, you need to meet God halfway. You know, because there's that joke about, you know, the individual going up on the mountaintop and asking for God to win the lottery. And this person does this every day, every day, every day. And then finally God speaks to this person and says, meet me halfway, buy a ticket. So for
I like that. Cute.
whatever that is worth, whatever that is worth.
So let me ask you this, Paul. I know, like I said, when I started, especially when I got Reiki trained for master level,
Mm-hmm.
and my teacher was Roland.
Yes.
So you can imagine how powerful that was. That was
Yes.
a very powerful 3 days of
Mm-hmm.
being in Roland energy. You
Correct.
know, I mean, I was exhausted by the time it was over.
Mm-hmm.
I also was so heightened by that. It was amazing. And then I really started seeing and feeling things.
Yes.
So with your work, do you actually find that you're more intuitive and you've actually had like paranormal experiences yourself where you see things or get messages yourself?
So I do, clearly not the way that Roland does, and that doesn't mean that what Roland is doing is better than me, and vice versa. I use the word perceive because I tend to see and feel. So one day I was working with a client, and I was asking them, geez, and I'll use you as an example, Dale. So Dale, what are you seeing or what are you feeling? And this person said, I'm not seeing or feeling anything, but oh, by the way, I'm smelling this and I'm hearing that.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, that was a lesson. Now my terminology is perceptors because we have clearly 5 of them, plus our intuition is 6.
True.
So I tend to see and I tend to feel. I'm working on hearing because I do have teachers, again, in non ordinary reality who are in human form, who talk. I see their lips moving, but I don't hear anything. So I'm asking to hear more. But I do get senses. And what I've learned with my intuition hits, as my wife would say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I've learned to tread lightly and not say, "Oh, Dale, there's a bear behind you. Do you want to talk to it?" Because that bear may not be there for you, Dale. That bear may be there for me.
Oh, okay.
So
So
now I ask the question, Dale, do you have a relationship with bear? So just being in the question.
so sometimes during your work, you also get messages for you.
Totally.
Really?
Yes.
That must be a little tricky to try to determine, is it for
Yes.
you or is it for the
I've been known to slam my head against the brick wall for a very long time, for many days at a time. Yes,
trying to
before
figure out what it
before
was?
it sinks in. And what'll happen is that it happens, and maybe in a session, or it'll be driving, or it'll be working in the yard, and something will come. And again, just being in the question and ask
So
questions around it versus saying, I know this or I know that. Does that make sense?
let me just clarify for our viewers. So you say you're driving down the road
Yes.
and you might get a message
I
from
call them downloads. Yes.
a download.
Yes.
Okay. And these downloads, they come from your spirit guides that you work with, for lack of a better word, in your practice.
Or a teacher that I haven't met yet.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by a teacher?
So we're always meeting teachers, and sometimes those teachers are in human form, and sometimes they're in non-ordinary reality in my world.
What do you mean by that phrase? Second time you've used that phrase. Non.
Non Yes. So shamans, shamanic practitioners are working in non-ordinary reality. We're working in spirit world.
That's the same thing, spirit world and non
For
whatever.
me, it's the same.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
I'm having a conversation. I'm working with a spirit, and clearly spirits are, to me, for me, are in non-ordinary reality, spirit world. They're not, they may be hypothetically sitting in my space where I'm sitting right now, but they're not physically here. Energetically, they're here.
Okay. All right. So you believe, like I do. We're kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but this is very fascinating to me.
Mhm.
So you believe, like I said, like I do, this is not Dale. This is what carries Dale around. My energy is inside. And when this wears out, my energy is still here. We just can't see it anymore.
And our conscious will move on, and depending on your belief system, will either incarnate or not incarnate into another body.
Ah, so you believe in reincarnation also.
I believe that I have been around the block more than once.
What makes you believe that?
It's just a belief system of having the conversation with one of my teachers, and then doing journey work. Part of shamanic work is doing journey work. Um,
What do you mean by
where
journey work?
so the first thing that I was taught in shamanism was how to journey,
Okay.
and our teachers using an open face drum, drumming 4 beats per second for approximately 8 to 10 minutes, put you in an altered state.
Just sitting there drumming on the drum,
Mhm.
4 beats per second for
Yes.
8 minutes will put you into an altered state.
And I'm drumming for other people, so other people will. If I'm not mistaken, you invited me to your office years ago,
Mhm.
and I did a journey with your group of people. So I drummed, I watched the time, and I asked people to journey to the lower world and the upper world, which is where compassionate beings are found. And
Okay.
those,
Done. Well, I'm trying to. You're throwing a lot at us here,
I
so
know.
I'm trying to get all the information I can. Okay, so the lower world and the upper world. What's that?
So in shamanism, there you have a lower world, you have the middle world, and an upper world. The
Okay.
middle world is where we are right now.
Okay.
The world we drive in, the world we eat in, the world we work in.
Our reality is the middle world.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it also exists in non-ordinary reality, as well as the lower world and the upper world. The lower world and the upper world, doing in shamanic work, is where compassionate beings are found, both in animal form and or human form. And these are compassionate beings. They don't have an agenda like individuals in the middle world.
So they have no ego.
They have no ego.
When you said the lower world, my Catholic brain went
So
to heaven
exactly.
and hell, right?
Yes,
But that's
correct.
not what you mean.
That is correct. So if I were teaching a group or an individual how to journey, that would be part of my dialogue. For those of you, I said, who will like me, who grew up as Catholic, when you hear lower world and upper world, it has a meaning. Because a kid, if I was doing the right thing, I was going up. And if I was doing the wrong thing, I was threatened of going down. So I
Right.
said, let's leave that outside. So there's a window behind me. Open the window, leave it outside, close the window. You can pick it up in an hour. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no religion tied into the work that I do, whether it's somatic work, shamanic work, or Reiki, period.
Okay. So
So
you start drumming for that,
yes,
and then the journey begins.
the journey begins and you have a question. So the first question would be, is I'm looking to find a teacher because I'm going to the lower world in animal form. And that's all you're looking to do,
Is find a teacher
in
in the
animal
lower
form.
world in
In
animal
animal
form.
form, correct.
Now, in the lower world, is that where just the animals are, or can there be beings down there
There
too?
can be beings, because what I've learned is that depending on our personalities of how we gravitate upwards or lower, I have found that even though we're instructed to go to the lower world to find a teacher in animal form, I have found teachers in human form as well, and vice versa.
I think I remember doing it when you came to my office, Paul.
Hmm.
And I remember you telling us to go to the lower world.
Yes.
And it wasn't until this very second, when we were talking about our Catholic upbringing,
Hmm.
that I remember I couldn't go to the lower world
Yes.
because it scared me, because
And that,
I associated it with evil.
correct. Correct. And that's not unusual, and it's very normal. But think about it. So I'm 63, and for, I don't want to say half my life, but until I was probably close to 20, that was instilled in me.
And those are the formative years.
And
You
those
know,
are,
those are the important years when we
and I know Buddy's been uh, sending messages. He mentioned guilt and shame, and that's like ding, ding, ding. And that's not just with Catholics, but that's just, I think, is just human nature.
Yes, but don't you think the Catholics kind of perpetuate the guilt and shame more?
I know it would be easy for you to say yes, Dale, but in the meantime, I'm sure that if you were having a conversation with somebody who is Jewish or Episcopalian, I don't want to say it's the same because it's not the same. The bottom line for me is it's similar.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion, not
Yeah.
having any understanding of Judaism or Episcopalian or anything else. But think about it, it's a structured religion.
Yes.
That's what also I think attracted me to shamanism, because shamanism is not a religion.
So let's finish the journey. Then I want to get back to
Yes,
shamanism not being a religion before we run out of time, because it's going very fast already, Paul. You're so
yes.
easy to talk to. This is fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
And I really, really appreciate this. So we're on the journey. You're banging the drum. You're asking us that first question about finding a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So does it matter? Like, if I'm more prone to go to the upper world, would that matter? Would that be significant to my journey?
It may be significant to you because, as an example, what you just shared, because of your upbringing, going down is an issue and going up is not.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So
Okay.
what I've done is I've changed. So when I was teaching people how to journey, normally the process was you taught people the journey into the lower world first, and then you taught them the journey to the upper world. But I found, from either what you and I are having a conversation on religion and so forth, I found that people get pulled in one way or another. And in my mind, as long as you're either going up or down to the lower world, you're still working with compassionate beings. What you don't want to do, being untrained, is being in the middle world,
Why?
because that's where non-compassionate beings live as well. So think about our daily lives. There are people, and I'm going to use this word, that you meet and you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other people that you meet and you want to take a shower.
Yeah.
That's my analogy.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And you don't trust them. So for me, it's again, going through the shamanic teachings, went to the lower world first, the upper world second, then with continued training, then we would go into the middle world, but you wouldn't go unless you had a trusted teacher with you from either the upper or lower world,
Okay.
to make sure that you weren't, as an example, I'm making this up, that you see the funny little bunny and saying, oh, how cute it is. And it's something that is not compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yes, it
That's
does. It does. Now, once you find your teacher
all. Mm-hmm.
on your journey,
Yes.
do they have a message for you?
It
Like, what's
depends on what
the idea of finding a teacher?
so it depends on you, because in part of the process of me explaining the journey process, that if you find a teacher right away and you want to ask a question, make sure it's a very concise question. Don't do a war and peace question.
What do you mean?
So when you're working with a client and you're asking them questions, you're not giving them this long, convoluted question. You're asking them, in a sense, something to the point.
Yep.
Being compassionate, clearly, not being hard. Same thing. If I ask a teacher a question and it's not clear, then I'm going to get a very unclear answer.
Okay.
If I ask a clear question, I'm going to get a clear answer. I still may not understand it, okay? But again, it is still, the more concise the question, to the point, the clearer the response will be.
Okay. Now, the teacher you find on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
do they stay with you?
It depends. I have found that some of the teachers that I have met the first journeys that I did back from 2005 are still with me. There are other teachers that wear more than one hat. So I have some teachers, not only do they help me with power retrieval, but they also help me with assisting with psychopomp work. They may also help me with curse lines.
With what?
I've had curse lines.
What's curse lines?
So, being again Italian, you've heard of giving someone the evil eye or giving someone the malarkeys.
Of course I have. Yes.
Okay. So for those of us, for those who are not Italian and didn't grow up that way, I believe when you wish someone ill, you're in a sense giving them a curse. So it's not where we're seeing the three witches by the cauldron and adding the eye of newt and giving or thinking about voodoo where someone's again placing a curse, which is another form of a curse.
Mm-hmm.
There are curse lines that we work with to release them because they have a hold on us.
And is it because, like, you want to break one of those curse lines? Because, I mean, I believe in obviously positive and negative energy. And if all you put out there is negative energy, that's all you're going to get back. You know, the whole law of attraction type
And
thing.
that is very true.
So this is the same
I
thought
believe
process.
it's similar. Correct. Yes.
Okay. So you want to break this to, again.
So I'm gonna use a different word, Dale. So what my personal belief is that when you break something, you leave something.
What do you mean?
Think about so it's fall, and because of the temperatures, the flowers that we planted in the spring and summer, we now had to clean up.
Yeah.
If I just cut the zinnias that were growing in our yard at the ground, I'm leaving a stem and I'm leaving a root system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Versus pulling the plant out completely. So my perception is when clearing a curse line or releasement of something, there's never any cutting, or you've heard cutting the cord and so forth. Again, it's just me. It doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. It's my perception of it that you're not cutting anything, because by cutting something, you're leaving something.
So your perception, Paul, is very similar to mine when I do my trauma work, is we have to get to the root of what it is in order to get it all out, in order to heal from it.
Yes. I am not overeating because of whatever. I'm overeating because of a traumatic situation that has rooted itself, and this is how it's showing up. It's showing up as me eating cake. It's showing up as me smoking. It's showing up as any multitude of any other thing that we distractions that we want to create for ourselves. Does that make any sense?
Yes, of course it does. Yes. Okay, so back to the journey.
Yes.
So 8 minutes in,
yes,
you find yourself a little bunny teacher, whatever. Then what's the next step that you do?
So then there's a callback. So again, as I mentioned, for approximately 8 to 10 minutes, it's 4 beats per second. And then there's a callback. So the instructions are to be given to you at the beginning, that you're going to be going down, looking for a teacher. When you find that teacher, ask your question, hang out with that teacher, create a relationship with that teacher. And then when you hear the callback, so the drumming sound changes, is to trace your way back as best you can and come back to where you're lying down. And then in a group situation, you're sharing that, as we did in your group setting in your office, where there were probably 10 or 12 people that evening. I had them pair up and they shared their experiences with somebody else and vice versa.
Yes.
And then, of course, you're journaling all this information. So that way, if you choose to go back and do enough, if you continue to journey, that you can go back where you left off and build on it. Just like if you didn't find a teacher, you can go back and try to find a teacher, because they exist. It's just us with our mental blocks or beliefs that I can't do this. I'm going down, that, God's going to blah, blah, blah. And again, I'm not beating up the Catholics, but again, we get in our heads.
What we were taught.
Because what happens in the shamanic world, what is happening in this realm that we're sitting in now having this conversation, and what is happening is also happening in non-ordinary reality, except there are more things happening in non-ordinary reality. Being you and I can have a pet rabbit. In non-ordinary reality, that pet will have a conversation with us.
So are you talking about like parallel universes here? Like there's a Paul and Dale in the non-order reality over
You know
there?
what? That's a good question, and I believe in other parallel, but I don't think of my shamanic work being that way. What
Okay.
I'm saying is that in non-ordinary reality, all the things that exist here in this realm, the realm that you and I are in,
Yeah.
happen there as well, but then they're multiplied. Again, the horse can have a verbal conversation with me where if I go to Stepping Stone Falls, the horse is not going to talk to me.
Right. Right. So do you believe after we're done in this reality,
Mm-hmm.
do we go over to the other side? Can we
So
go talk to the horses?
that's a great question. I learned something from Roland a long time ago that when we leave this body and move on, we don't automatically cross over.
What do you mean we don't automatically cross over? Where do we go?
Don't-
Are you going to freak me out now, Paul, right before I have to
So,
go to bed? What do you mean we don't cross over?
so keeping this in mind, these are Paul's beliefs, nobody else's. There's a window behind me, or the door is a door in yours. Let it go. If it said this is wacky, this is crazy, this is stupid, he has no idea, which is possibly true, let it go. I went to one of Roland's readings with a group, and somebody said they wanted to talk to so and so. And
Okay.
he, as you know, Roland, he started asking questions and found out that this person had passed by suicide,
Oh,
and shared with them that it may not have been possible to have had a conversation with them because it was a short period of time from when they passed to that meeting, that they could have been in a place energetically that was still in turmoil as they were here in this
oh,
realm. What
okay.
I've learned in space clearing work, and I know that you do paranormal work
Yes.
with assisting people clearing out energies, uh, in their home or their businesses, etc. Which we did that in your space when you
Mhm.
were on Jefferson Boulevard,
Yes, we
uh,
did.
and again, there are people I believe that have passed, don't know they've passed, and are just hanging around.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's in our paranormal, Ocean State Paranormal, one of
Mhm,
the best paranormal groups in Rhode Island. I got to give
mhm,
them a plug. Um, we have experienced and we have felt that there were either residual
mhm.
people that just don't
Correct,
know. They're stuck in
correct.
an energy warp almost.
And
Don't
yes, so
know.
again, not agreeing with the concept, not saying that I don't disagree with the warp part, because the way that you do your work and the way that I do my work shamanically are a little bit different.
Mhm.
But again, we're perceiving similar things.
True. And what's interesting, Paul, and I say this all the time when people ask me about our paranormal work or even about my Reiki work, I say, well, most of this we don't know 100%.
Correct,
I don't know anybody who's gone to that side and come back.
correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is what I believe. You're
Yes,
free to believe in whatever you do, but this is what
exactly.
I believe.
And it's hard, and think about it. It's very hard to have that conversation. It's
Yes.
not like we're going to Stop and Shop with our shopping list and
Right.
meeting somebody, getting peppers and having a conversation. It's
Right.
not a conversation that one has about having shamanic work, somatic work, Reiki work, etc. When you say you do energy work, they say, "Oh, you install wind turbines." It's like, well, that's not really what I do.
Not quite. No.
So, but again, Reiki, which is great, is depending on the hospitals. Like South County, they have people who are giving Reiki to clients or all the time. I
Yeah.
know a lot
Yeah.
of different hospice places do similar work.
I've
Uh,
been asked to go to Women and Infants and do
Mm,
Reiki work there. I just don't know where I could possibly fit it in my schedule, but I would love to. The more we can expand our energy work, the more
mm-hmm.
we can expand our spirituality, it's
Correct.
only going to heal the world in general. And I
Correct.
think right now our world needs a lot of healing.
And it does, because if you were to ask me, how I am, I give the same answer. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. The rest of it is noise. And when I think about the noise in the news, on TV,
Oh,
I also think the social media world is also noise as well.
yes, it is.
Um, and we're and we can say, well, I'm blocking it out, but guess what? We're not deflecting it all. It's a bunch of it is landing.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Why do you think I'm so busy, Paul? At my
Yes, and
at
and
my
to
other job.
me, to
Absolutely.
me, that's just another form of trauma.
Yeah. No,
Another
I
form of trauma.
totally agree. Let me share with you and with our audience before we run out of time. We got a little bit more, but my husband was at when you with us when we were in Jefferson Boulevard. I don't know if
Yes.
you were, Jim
Yeah.
was Jim was very early on his spiritual journey
Mhm.
when we did the drumming session. And he had such an experience where he saw himself he went to the upper world
Okay.
and up to the top of a mountain and saw
Mhm.
himself flying off like a bird and
Mhm.
felt himself flying. I mean, that was just so amazing
Yeah.
for him to have that kind of experience for
Yes.
somebody who was not very open to this stuff
Correct.
beforehand. I mean,
Yes.
that's the power of going to one of your events, Paul, to
But
go to work with
well,
you. Like,
he
it's
was open, and you need to take some credit because you opened that door for him.
mm,
Uh, and not everybody is that open,
no.
and that's okay. Again, meeting people where they are is very important.
Oh, it's the foundation of my work.
Yes.
You have to meet people where they are. Let me
Correct.
ask you, I want to tell the audience too, when we did it, it wasn't just the drumming you did. Your assistant or your friend Catherine was also there,
Yes. So
who will
Catherine's
be
been
coming on my show too, eventually.
perfect.
She used a rattle,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
So is there a difference between using the drum and using a rattle? Like, what's the significance in that?
I believe it's a preference. Uh,
Okay.
and Catherine can probably answer the question better, but for whatever reason, um, well, it has to do with personalities. Catherine's very detailed, and she would, when we would do our shamanic drum healing, she would always be up close to a person. She'd be rattling or drumming, etc. And I would be more. I would drum more, which to me was more grounding or holding space. That doesn't mean I wasn't participating and assisting, and teachers that I have relationships with were not there doing work and so forth. I think it's a preference. When I'm working in my space, there are times I'll get the intuition to use my rattles. There are other times I'll pick up, or not pick up, I'll take the gong off the wall and I'll use the gong, or
Mhm.
I have a rain stick. Uh,
Oh, I love the rain stick.
so again, it depends, and the tinctures and bells and so forth. It's the vibration. So for me, there's no difference other than potentially a preference, or maybe for what she was doing.
Mhm.
Because I do know for a fact, because we've had this conversation, and when we did drum healings, we would share with people that it seems at the beginning part of the hour, because it was an hour long of sound, that
Yep.
the beginning part was more of the releasement piece, of getting to the root of something and allowing it to kind of again soften up, so to speak. And then the second, and then once it was released, the second part was the healing part of bringing back healed soul parts and bringing back power again, making that individual whole. And keeping in mind, I know this goes back to the beginning of the hour. When I'm doing a drum healing for somebody or a soul retrieval, not all the soul parts that are missing from all the trauma that we've experienced come back. It's only those that want to come back at that moment in time. And for me, they're not numbered, they're not dated. They show up as bundles or whatever the case is. But again, that's just how I'm perceiving them.
Now, if we're talking about releasing things, and it is such a healing experience, but I also want our audience to know that it can also be a very emotional
Totally.
experience for people.
Not
As you're
every
healing, as you're
correct.
releasing some of this, as the pieces are coming
Yes.
back, like it can be a very emotional time.
Yes, and
to
in some cases not feel good at all. So we
Yes,
in
yes.
the 12 years that because we began doing shamanic drum healings in May of 2010, we stopped just about a year or so ago, and for roughly 11 years before COVID, we did 2 to 3 drum healings a month
Mhm.
during that entire time. And many people would give us feedback and say, I feel this, I feel that. Other people say, I feel like crap.
Yeah,
And in part of our conversation, I would always say to people, or Catherine would say, that, you're going to get what you need.
yeah.
We don't
Maybe not
always
what you want, but you're gonna
bingo,
get what you need.
bingo.
Yeah.
And I may not like what I get, but it's what I need. And I understand that. And that's a very hard pill. That's a very hard pill to swallow, but that's just the reality.
Well, it's very, again, our work is very similar in that a lot of times people come to me to heal, and I have to take them down a difficult path in order to get to that ultimate healing.
Getting to the root cause of anything is never a pleasant party.
No, no, it's not. But
Never.
I mean, I say to people all the time, I'm 61 myself right now, and I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing till the day I die. I
Mhm.
never want to stop healing because I
Correct.
don't think I ever will. I always want to keep changing. I don't want to be the same Dale I was 5 years ago, and I'm not the same Dale I'm going to be 5 years from now.
Correct.
We
Exactly.
always have to keep evolving and changing.
Well, we're going to continue regardless. And the analogy that I use is the earth, since we've started this conversation an hour ago, we're not in the same place because the earth is spinning on an axis. We have moved.
That is true. I've never thought of it that way, Paul, but that is true.
So we're never in the same place.
I'm going to use that because sometimes I just need the people I work with just to hold on a little longer
Mm-hmm.
because tomorrow will be a different day.
It will.
It'll be different in an hour. If you can just hold on sometimes a
Mm-hmm.
little longer, time will move you forward, whether you want it or not.
This is very true. Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
We have just like under a minute left, Paul. I want to thank you so much. This has been such an easy and wonderful premiere episode of this. I could talk to you for another 3 hours about this stuff. I have a list here that I didn't even get to half of the stuff because we kept going off on tangents.
Well,
I hope everyone thought it was very interesting. I thought it was fascinating, Paul. I would love for you to come back again and talk more about this.
perfect. So thank you, number one, for having me here. I was nervous when I started. I still have cotton mouth as we speak an hour later. I'd be very happy to come back at another time. I know that you asked me for some other names, Catherine, Colleen, David Barr, someone who works with dreams shamanically.
Yep, I'm going to be contacting everyone. We are going
Perfect.
to bring everyone on. This is going to be, and everyone who tuned in, I hope you tune in every other Tuesday at the same time. We will keep bringing on fascinating guests like Paul and talking about all the things that are involved in our metaphysical world. Thank you for joining us. We had a wonderful time. Namaste to everybody. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you again. Take care.
Take care. Good night, everyone.